Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. This show was recorded on Monday, July 11, 2022. I'm Asbed Bedrossian, together here with Hovik Manucharyan. Before we begin this show, we'd like to request that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. We're very active on Facebook as well. We have a group there and a page. So join our community. Like our Facebook page, join our Facebook group where you can participate in discussions on the news around the clock. Don't just listen to our show, but subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. That helps us a lot. So, on with the show. Here are the major topics we're going to touch on. Developments in regional politics. Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iran will cover some of the diplomatic traffic and what they mean. And watch your internets. The Pashinyan government is floating a new censorship tool or legislation modeled after Russia's Roskomnadzor. And then we'll also have personal statements from the participants. To talk about these issues, we have with us Hrant Mikaelian, a political scientist and multidisciplinary researcher in social sciences based in Yerevan. He is also a senior researcher at the Caucasus Institute. We also have Benyamin Poghosyan, who is the chairman of the Yerevan-based think tank Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. Hello and welcome, everyone.
Hello, Hrant. Hello, Benyamin.
Hello.
Hello, Asbed. Hello, Hovik. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, let's begin with on the diplomatic front. There were the last 2 weeks were busy in terms of regional geopolitical news, starting from the Armenian-Azerbaijani negotiations to negotiations with Ankara, and as well as increased diplomatic activity from Iran. Let's begin with Azerbaijan because that's the most puzzling. Over the last 2 weeks, the news and the relations seem to be strained, like always, but there is also some vague news that there have been agreements here and there. First, there were reports by Izvestia, a Russian newspaper, that with Russian support, Armenia and Azerbaijan have reached an agreement on the road connecting Azerbaijan proper with Nakhichevan. Hrant Mikaelian, Armenia's deputy prime minister, said that they were able to bring the positions of Yerevan and Baku closer on many issues, including border customs control. Of course, without providing much detail. Then on July 7th, the Azerbaijani foreign minister said in response that there is no progress in peace talks with Armenia. And in fact, he even rejected Pashinyan's offer of mirrored withdrawal of forces from the border regions, which was billed as Pashinyan as a way to reduce deaths and incidents on the border. And meanwhile, there were reports of shootings in the village of Khachik earlier in the week and the village of Yelpin later in the week, both on the western border of Armenia, bordering Nakhichevan. Hrant, what do we know exactly about the nature? Let's begin with these alleged agreements. Do we know anything concrete about the nature of the agreements between Armenia and Azerbaijan on the issue of that road?
Well, I don't have very specific information. I can only refer to the 6 points which were brought by Azerbaijan and not rejected by Armenia, or 5 points, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. And then several points, counterpoints for negotiations, which were brought up by Pashinyan, but were rejected by Baku. And most probably, this can be discussed as a base for negotiations, since Armenian side has accepted these terms. So more or less, it's discussion of transportation through Syunik. But I don't know specific details, so I will not go further.
Benyamin, we know that you're sometimes in contact with Azerbaijani experts. Do you have any sort of information that you can tell us about the exact nature of this road or something that we can talk about? And given that there is also shootings, I assume that there is something that Baku wants that Armenia is still not giving. So do you know what that is?
On the second issue, I have no information regarding, yes, in late June, I was in Georgia when European Union organized a big event with participation of up to 15 Armenians and 15 Azerbaijani experts. There was EU special representative there, Mr. Toivo Klar, and it was 2-day discussion about the future scenario for the South Caucasus. The discussion itself was done in Chatham House rules, which means that you cannot refer any names, but you can share information or ideas which have been discussed. So from Azerbaijani perspective, at least from the experts who have been there, several issues related to these roads, but not only to the roads. Azerbaijanis believe, or I may say even they threaten, that if Armenia is not going to legally accept Azerbaijani demands that there is a no Nagorno-Karabakh and there will never be any status, even very light cultural autonomy, if Armenia is not going to accept this legally in the written form, signing as a part of this future Armenia-Azerbaijan agreement, then Azerbaijan will demand to establish autonomy for Azerbaijanis in Syunik province. And when you are telling Azerbaijanis, but look, guys, you have zero Azerbaijani in Syunik province, how is logical to demand autonomy for Azerbaijanis if there are no Azerbaijanis in Syunik? And they say, okay, now there is no Azerbaijan in Syunik, but if Armenia is not going to, in a written form, sign an agreement declaring that there is no Nagorno-Karabakh, then first Azerbaijan will demand the so-called return of Azerbaijani refugees to Syunik. And if Armenia rejects these Azerbaijani demands, then probably Azerbaijan could force Armenia first to return, according to their data, some tens of thousands, even up to 50,000 Azerbaijanis to Syunik, and then give them some autonomy, whatever autonomy, like cultural autonomy. And only in that case, Azerbaijan would say, okay, we will mirror the same type of autonomy which Armenia will grant to the Azerbaijanis in Syunik. The same type of autonomy can be granted to the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. So this is the first idea of Azerbaijan. Second idea of these Azerbaijani experts was the fact that, yes, we have some progress in these two tracks, like restoration of communications and also the start of border delimitation and demarcation process. Also, the border delimitation and demarcation process is also somehow frozen. Sides established the national commissions. There was one meeting in late May between leaders of these commissions. Then it was declared that soon second meeting will happen in Moscow, third meeting will happen in Brussels, but we have already approximately 50 days passed and no meetings and no one knows when the process will start. So really, according to Azerbaijan experts, there is a progress, real progress, only in one track, restoration of communications. And they say that most probably Azerbaijan will agree to have this railroad and highway, which will connect Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan via Syunik, to be controlled only by Russians. Somehow they believe that, of course, the best case scenario for Azerbaijan is zero control, but at the end of the day, they are ready to accept Russian control, somehow making connections with this highway and railway and the Lachin corridor, telling that, okay, Lachin corridor is controlled only by Russians, then theoretically Azerbaijan may agree that this railway and highway, which will pass through Syunik and connect Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan, should be controlled only by Russians, no Armenian custom officer or border officer or anything else. But at the strategic level, there were discussions that if Armenia and Azerbaijan are not going to agree on the future of Nagorno-Karabakh, which was a core issue of the conflict, and most probably they are not going to agree because, again, Azerbaijan demands that Armenia should sign an agreement when there will be zero reference to Nagorno-Karabakh and zero demand for autonomy or for anything else. And Azerbaijani colleagues say that they believe that even current government is not going to do that, to accept all demands of Azerbaijan. Then they believe that it means that the third war is inevitable. Even if there will be progress on the restoration of communications, even if this highway and railway will be open to connect Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan, even
Benjamin, what would the third war achieve?
What would third war achieve?
Yeah, what would be the objective on Azerbaijan? Yeah.
From Azerbaijani perspective, the third war mainly will be fought on the territory of Armenia, even not on Nagorno-Karabakh. And it will result to another significant defeat of Armenia. And most probably in that case, they say that we will take entire or part of Syunik, Gegarkunik, and Vayodor regions. So they say that the third war, which will not be fought on the Nagorno-Karabakh, because from their perspective, Nagorno-Karabakh issue is solved for them, even if theoretically Russians will stay there for another 20 years. Let's assume that Russian troops are stationed there until 2045, for example. But they say it's not a problem for us because we are going to bring more and more Azerbaijanis into the borders of former Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast. 30% are controlled by them now.
And control any future referendums.
Yes. No, they say that, okay, let's assume Russians force Azerbaijan to accept Russian troops deployment in Stepanakert or near Stepanakert for another 20 years. let's jump another 20 years. Now it's 2042 or even 2045. From their perspective, because there will be no clear future and no 100% security for Armenians, Armenian population will continue to decline in Nagorno-Karabakh, and the Azerbaijani population will continue to rise. So then, if we are in the 2045, and there are more Azerbaijanis than Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, even with Russian troops, they say that it means that the Karabakh issue is over. It's a conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, at least. So they are confident that strategically the Karabakh issue is solved in favor of Azerbaijan, if not in short-term perspective, but at least in the long-term perspective. But they are telling that if Armenia is not going to accept this fact legally, just trying to postpone this issue or trying to frozen this issue, then most probably, according to their vision, third war is inevitable. But third war most probably will not be fought mostly in Nagorno-Karabakh or against Russian troops in Nagorno-Karabakh, but mostly will be fought against Republic of Armenia with clear objective to take entire or part of at least 3 regions. I mean, at least these ideas were circulated by Azerbaijani experts.
So I don't suppose that when Azerbaijan raised the issue of autonomy for Azerbaijanis in Syunik, anybody talked about autonomy for Armenians in Nakhichevan?
Frankly speaking, these discussions about autonomy of Syunik were rejected by our Armenian experts. But the problem is that, again, they can say everything we can reject, but at the end of the day, there is a feeling that, okay, if we are speaking about totally different things, yes, you can demand autonomy of Azerbaijanis even in Amasya and Tashotsk, and we can demand autonomies for Armenians in Baku. But at the end of the day, all this means that, yes, maybe really the third war is coming. Maybe not now, maybe after 1 year or after 3 years or after 5 years.
It seems like a bunch of maximalist positions that are clashing with each other. It's either for negotiation or basically to say there's no outcome except war.
Yes, at least this was a widespread perception in Azerbaijani experts that either Armenia accepts Azerbaijani vision and very quickly and in legally written signed agreement form declaring that there is no Nagorno-Karabakh, no demand for autonomy, nothing. And then Azerbaijan will deal with Russia regarding how long, where, and in what modalities Russian troops will remain in Nagorno-Karabakh. Or the protest will start. Azerbaijan will demand first the return, so-called return of Azerbaijani refugees to Syunik. Armenia will reject. Azerbaijan will say no. In that case, I am forcing. And at the end of the day, we will have the third war.
Well, I can say that I did not have communication to Azerbaijani experts, and I did not read Azerbaijani official or unofficial media much lately, but observing from what they do on the ground, we can see that they are preparing for this war, and they are preparing in the mode not if but when. So this is important from my point of view. On one side, during whole 2021, they were preparing the strongholds in the east of Syunik and Vayotzor. They took some territories, the K-Hates. I've talked about that in our discussions. But now they started shooting at Khachik and the Yelpin villages in the Vayotzor, which is to the west of Vayotzor. That proves what I was always saying, that Azerbaijanis say Zangezur. When they say Zangezur, they mean Syunik and Vayotzor. So it is also important to understand. So they are planning to cut Syunik and Vayotzor in once. Now, when we discuss that in Armenia, they always ask, what can we do? We are weaker and so on. Look, the one very important thing is that today Armenia does not have anything to counter Azerbaijan, and it completely depends on external balance, not internal balance within the region. So what we should do is increase the price for Azerbaijan for its aggression. So Azerbaijan had to wait 26 years for good terms, for many things, for switched balance between Armenia and Azerbaijan, because the price was high enough. And now we should do the same. We should increase the role of military. We should improve it, but nothing is being done. So this is a problem. I think if we improve military, at least we can talk about this, let's say, inevitable war from stronger position. That's what we need to do as of now.
Okay, let's move to Turkey because there have been developments on that front as well. Last week, Turkey and Armenia announced progress, if I can use air quotes, in the normalization talks. conspicuously in lockstep with the announcement about the agreement on the road between Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan. And specifically, the two countries' representatives announced that they will work on allowing citizens of third countries to cross the Armenian-Turkish border. They also announced an agreement to begin direct cargo flights. To top off the fanfare today, July 11th, Erdogan and Pashinyan had a telephone conversation, congratulating each other on Kurban Bayram, which is a Turkish Muslim holiday, and the upcoming Vartavar holiday, which is almost 2 weeks away. The tweet by Pashinyan reiterated that the sides intend to expedite the implementation of the agreements reached so far. In fact, he also, during the government session earlier in the week, he said that. And just to note that 24 hours, or actually maybe several days prior to this, on Friday, Erdogan, who loves symbolism, had tweeted a picture of the Holy Apostles Church in Kars, which had been converted into a mosque, wishing his followers a happy Friday. So my question is, this is basically being emphasized by both governments at a high level as some kind of a breakthrough. But do you really agree that this is a breakthrough? How significant is this development?
Well, obviously, it's not breakthrough. Let's start from the flights. The foreign observers have always asked me, do you consider the opening of flights, possible opening of flights between Yerevan and Ankara or Istanbul, breakthrough? And I say, obviously, no, because we had these flights several years ago, and we still did not have diplomatic relations. And again, I think this is some kind of progress, but you cannot say that by this you are solving some real issues. Okay, if Turkey decides to open the border, the land border, maybe that's a significant progress. Still not breakthrough, but significant progress, and flights completely not. Now, another thing is that there are direct talks probably between the Armenian and Turkish governments. We had several leaks in media, statements by Turkish official, and we can remember how Pashinyan went to Georgia and then stayed in Batumi for several hours, which was not included in the program last year. And also we can remember how Erdogan supported Pashinyan several times openly, including once a couple of days before these days.
Right.
Now, celebrating Happy Friday in Kars, I think we should understand it the following way. Erdogan supports Armenian church staying a mosque. That's what it is. And the good signs, I don't see any good sign, to be frank. So yeah, I see some progress in between the governments. So they might reach some agreement, which is discussed, but I don't see any progress in terms of improving Armenia's situation, both transport and economic wise and so on.
Regarding opening the Turkish-Armenian border for third country citizens to cross, Benyamin, who are they thinking will be needing or using this option? And are there any expectations that Azeris will be using this facilitation? What's the thought behind this?
Frankly speaking, I don't believe that we have any number of foreigners who are ready to cross Armenia-Turkey border by land, and why they should do that. For example, if there is some idea to organize some joint touristic groups or regional touristic groups or regional tours, which will cover both Armenia and Turkey, but even at that time, okay, why the tourists should come to Armenia and then cross the border by land, go to Khartoum, etc., if they can, at the end of the day, use the Yerevan Istanbul flight. So I'm not sure if we will have any big number of foreigners who are ready or will use this opportunity to cross Armenia-Turkey land border. Maybe this is done like to make more technical preparations to see what are the problems, if there will be few crossings per month, for example.
To basically work out the logistics, you mean?
Yes, work out logistics that at the end of the day, if there will be opening of land border also for Armenian and Turkish citizens somehow to see what are the problems and solve those problems. But again, on the strategic level now with this Armenia-Turkey normalization process, this is not a rapprochement, and definitely this is not reconciliation between Armenia and Turkey. This may end also even by the establishing of diplomatic relations, and it does not mean that definitely Turkey should open embassy in Yerevan or Armenia should open embassy in Ankara. At the end of the day, Turkish embassy in Moscow or in Georgia can cover Armenia, and the Armenian embassy in Moscow or in Georgia or in Iran or in whatever country can cover Turkey. We have a lot of embassies in Armenia which are not resident embassies, and simply they are traveling to Armenia several times per year.
Mhm.
So I will not be surprised that at the end of the day, this agreement will be reached. That let's assume Turkish ambassador in Georgia is covering also Armenia, and maybe once or two times per year he will come to meet with some officials and etc. But even if let's assume diplomatic relations are established, and even if when we will have the land border open between Armenia and Turkey, also for Armenian and Turkish citizens, this absolutely does not mean that if there will be war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Turkey will not fully support Azerbaijan militarily, politically, economically,
And close the border again anyway.
Right.
or close the border. So the key issue is here when some experts argue that okay, we need normalization of relations with Turkey because it will eliminate danger from Turkey. Yes, of course, we need normal relations with Turkey. Why not to have diplomatic relations? Even until February 24 or even after February 24, Russia and Ukraine have diplomatic relations while they are actually in war. And we can give many other examples. For example, India, Pakistan, they always sometimes
exactly.
they reach the nuclear war to the brink of the nuclear war, but they have trade and they have diplomatic relations.
Could
trade,
Armenia have a similar problem to Europe where Turkey lines up a large number of migrants from let's say Syria or the Middle East and essentially put a great cost on that border on Armenia to manage the migrant situation?
it could be. I'm not sure if this Turkey will try to bring this some of Syrian migrants to Armenia, but the main focal point is here that yes, it will be good to have diplomatic relations with Turkey and to have open border. Also, you know that different experts on economy says different things. Is it useful or not useful for Armenian economy? I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to enter into this debate. But I'm just telling that the fact that let's assume in January 2023 Armenia Turkey will establish diplomatic relations, and their land border will be opened also for Armenian and Turkish citizens. This absolutely does not mean that the danger or threat from Turkey is eliminated or even diminished. Because again, in this scenario, if on January 2023 border is opened and diplomatic relations is established, then in July 2023 Azerbaijan starts large-scale offensive against Armenia, I am more than pretty sure that Turkey will fully support Azerbaijan, as within at least at the same level as in 2020, which will mean not only Turkish weapons, it will be Turkish operators, it will be Turkish generals, Turkish advisors, and even Turkey can simply close the border again. So
I have no
let's
doubt.
not confuse two things: diplomatic relations with Turkey and the opening of Armenia-Turkey land border, even for Armenian and Turkish citizens. It does not mean that Turkey is not a danger for Armenia or Turkey cannot make openly anti-Armenian step. Let's just remember the relations between Turkey and Syria in the period of 2006-2010. In this 4-year period, 2006-2010, there was huge increase in Turkish-Syria economic cooperation, huge increase. Hundreds of Turkish firms were operating in Syria. There was a billions of dollars trade between Turkey and Syria. Turkey and Syria established even the high-level strategic council once per year. President of Turkey, president of Syria, ministers were meeting. There were many other meetings on a little bit less level, like ministerial level, deputy ministerial levels, and etc., etc. And there was a feeling that okay, this is one of the best partnership relations between any countries. And I'm speaking about relation between Turkey and Syria. But already in late 2011, Turkey was the main channel to bring these mercenaries, Islamic terrorists, and etc. into Syria and to fight to kick out Syrian government to occupy part of Syria. And at the end of the day, starting from 2016, Turkey starts to occupy Syrian territory. Currently, Turkey occupies 8,000 square kilometers of Syrian territory. And almost every day, Erdogan states that we are going to start another large-scale military offensive and occupy another several thousand kilometers of Syrian territory. So this is a clear sign that even if Armenia and Turkey establishes diplomatic relations and land border is opened also for citizens of Armenia and Turkey, this absolutely does not mean that Turkey will not act against Armenia or there will be no threat from Turkey and etc. etc.
I just have to note that I was listening to an interview with Vahan Keropyan, Armenia's Minister of Economy, and he was also saying that Turkey coordinates its activities with Azerbaijan. So given all these statements, I really don't know how Armenia can say that there are no preconditions, because if the relationship with Azerbaijan has many preconditions that we know about, and Turkey is basing its relationship based on those preconditions. I wanted to see if anyone had any statements on that, but also at the same time, I wanted to also talk about these achievements that Turkey is praising Pashinyan's government about, while at the same time criticizing the Armenian opposition, calling them extremist, quoting, quote, extremist groups on the streets of Armenia, which is what Çavuşoğlu used. And he described the Armenian opposition basically as an obstacle to the normalization process. From a perspective of interference in internal affairs, and from the perspective of actually, does this help Turkey even or hurt Turkey to ostracize or to criticize the Armenian opposition? What are your thoughts? Is this something that will help Armenia to establish better relations with Turkey, or is this basically like Turkey like kicking the ball, down the street, basically showing that it's not really interested in establishing relations?
In my view, Turkey considers that the process is fully dependent on its will. It plays strong side, and Turks know that they have closed the borders, they can open it, and then they can close it again. So it's very convenient to, let's say, get some concessions in order to open the border, and then maybe close it again and get more concessions. That's how they work. So Turkey now is, as they thinking of Armenian-Turkish process as of not primary area of interest, but still somehow important. But they are trying to make it fully manageable on Turkish side. So that's why they don't hurry it much. And also when they say, for example, in Armenia, that they have good signs from Turkey, maybe they have fruitful discussions against the Armenian opposition, I don't know. And also I can add that unfortunately Armenian opposition does its job very badly. Its activities do not lead to better negotiated position on Armenian side at least.
Interesting.
From my perspective, I don't believe that the statements from Turkish officials regarding their view on Armenian opposition, they are extremists or not extremists, have any significant impact on Armenia-Turkey negotiations. Okay, maybe some in Armenian government, they feel good when hear that someone else criticizes the opposition, but I don't believe that this part plays any significant role in the process.
All right. Well, in the past month, we've seen Iran's diplomacy step up. Their foreign minister has visited Turkey, Syria, Azerbaijan, and more meetings are planned in bilateral and trilateral format. Iran's national security chief, Ali Shamkhani, visited Yerevan for high-level meetings last week. Multiple statements were made about Iran's formerly stated red line, about violating Armenia's territorial integrity, referring specifically about the Sunnik region, as a matter of fact. So let's put this in context of the meetings between Aliyev and Iran's President Raisi, as well as Aliyev and Putin in Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. This is where the Caspian states met last week. Why did Shamkhani loudly reiterate Iran's solid stance on Armenia's territorial integrity? Who was the intended audience for this, and why now, Benyamin?
Okay, this is not new. Let's remember that even the former foreign minister, Javad Zarif, who visited both Armenia and Azerbaijan, I believe in May 2021, just a month before the presidential elections in Iran. He also, in Azerbaijan, he congratulated Azerbaijan for the liberation of Azerbaijani lands from occupation. In Armenia, he said that territorial integrity is a red line. By the way, Iranians are speaking about territorial integrity of every state, which from another point of view is good also for Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan tells that, okay, territorial integrity, it means forget about Nagorno-Karabakh independence. So territorial integrity does not mean that there can be no autonomies, and Azerbaijan itself has an autonomous Republic of Nakhichevan, but this is another issue. And then we remember how in early October 2021, Iran organized large-scale military drills along Iran-Azerbaijan border. There was some high-level tensions. Azerbaijan has arrested 2 Iranian drivers. Definitely, Iran will not be happy to see Sunnik under de facto or even de jure Azerbaijan in Turkish control. That is why they are interested to somehow prevent this. And I believe the idea to open the consulate in Kapan the capital of Syunik region, which as far as I know will be opened until end of 2022, is somehow another sign that Iran is interested in Syunik. Also, as far as I know, Iranians are thinking about making some investments in Syunik, trying to create jobs, high-income jobs, so that Armenian population is not going to leave Syunik, because Iranians understand that this is also a problem. If there will be less and less Armenians living in Syunik, it will be easier and easier for Azerbaijan and Turkey to establish at least de facto control. However, if the third Karabakh war or third Armenia-Azerbaijan war starts, and Azerbaijani army simply occupies part or entire Syunik, or at least tries to occupy it, I think it's very, very unlikely that Iran would militarily intervene. I believe it's very, very unlikely. So we should have very clear understanding that yes, Iranians do not want to see Turkish and Azerbaijani de facto and even de jure control in Syunik. They are ready to increase their involvement in Syunik, also economic involvement in Syunik. But again, if there is a large-scale war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, I almost exclude that Iranian troops will start to fight Azerbaijani troops.
Interesting.
This is for me close to science fiction.
So if they are not going to do anything about it, then why even mention the red line every time?
Okay, but let's understand what does it mean red line and what it means that red lines are crossed. For example, we have the example of President Obama. He said 10 times that the alleged chemical use of chemical weapons in Syria is a red line for the United States. Then he said that we have 100% evidence that chemical weapons were used, and then nothing happens.
Right.
So when Iran is telling about red lines, it does not mean that if Azerbaijan starts war against Armenia, the next day Iranian planes will bomb Baku. I don't believe this is going to happen because any military action against Azerbaijan, first it means regional war in South Caucasus, and I'm not sure Iran is ready for regional war in South Caucasus given his deteriorating relations with United States and Israel. Most probably the possibility of restoration of Iranian's nuclear deal is dead, and Iran is very close to enrich as much uranium which will allow him to at least produce one nuclear bomb. Israel is very unhappy. Some even believe that until November 2022, when there will be early parliamentary elections in Israel, we may see even military strike from Israel against Iran, both to at least postpone the construction of nuclear bomb and also use it in the domestic political issues. So in these consequences, to start war against strategic ally of Turkey, because any war between Iran and Azerbaijan, it's mean if not real war between Iran and Turkey, but it means end of Iranian-Turkish relations. But Iran has much different type of relations with Turkey. Let's not forget that Turkey was a country who helped Iran to circumvent American sanctions.
Right.
And here we are speaking about up to $20 billion amount of money, $20 billion. And I'm not sure that Turkey currently, even now, Turkey is not helping Iran to circumvent American sanctions. So to start war in the South Caucasus, where we have United States, we have Russia at the end of the day, we have Turkey, to start the war against Turkish ally, which theoretically may end up with Turkey-Iran war, in the situation when Iran itself is prepared for the potential, and not hypothetical, but real potential war against Israel. And we all understand that if Israel strikes Iran, Iran strikes back against Israel, maybe US will strike Iran and will be completely mess.
Much bigger
and I'm
war.
absolutely not sure that in this mess, yes, in this theoretical but still tangible bigger war, Iran is ready to have another war against Turkey.
So let me ask, Hrant, how is Iran dealing with this very complicated picture then, both in trying to take care of its national interests, north of its border, in the post-44-day war reality, and how do its statements roll into its policy?
First of all, we should take into account that for Iran, the 44-day war, in my opinion, was something unexpected. It was bad news for Iran. And on one hand, Iran was always supportive of some solution which is more or less close to Madrid principles or something. So it was not fully supportive of Armenia. So we should note that Iran is a Muslim country, and then also Armenia did not have any proper negotiation with Iran on that issue. So that is not to be unexpected. After the war, Iran had to adapt to new reality, and specifically now when it's also Russia-Ukraine war, and not only that, it's a very fluid context which is constantly changing, and Iran internally is weaker now because there are new protests and so on. Iran cannot do much, that's obvious, but at the same time, it can try to find itself in a new context. That's what they are trying to do. They are trying to negotiate with any partner possible and then to create new policies. So here is a problem, I think, where Armenia does not have any negotiating position with Iran. Regarding Iran's threats towards Baku, which were made in September, October 2021, we should remember several things. First of all, they have, on the statements level, they have already taken back all their threats towards Baku. They have, let's say, improved relations, and also they have participated in Caspian Sea summits with Azerbaijan as well. So that's one part of the story. Another part of the story is that why did not Iran further escalate back then? The biggest reason is not even Turkey, but Russia. Because in fact, Russia supported Baku at the time, and Iran found itself in a position when it cannot rely on anyone. When Turkey, Russia, Baku itself, and the West and Israel, everyone is on one side, and on another side is Iran. So it cannot defend itself in the way on, let's say, in an issue of a road through Armenia. Now, regarding the participation in the war and so on, I think we can understand Iran's statement in the following way. Turkey and Azerbaijan have military agreement. Armenia and Russia have also military agreement, but Armenia and Iran theoretically, purely theoretically, can also form a military alliance with some defensive obligations, which would not imply full-scale war, but at least deployment of some Iranian troops, or at least some obligation of keeping the line if necessary. So at least in local battles, Iranians could be involved if a proper agreement is there, and if Iranians know that after these clashes, they can gain something, or at least be sure that they will not lose anything. So it depends again on negotiation, and again, the preposition is on the table, I'm sure. So Armenia can go further, but again and again.
In this picture, everyone is there except the Armenian armed forces. It's very frustrating.
True.
Regarding Hrant's suggestion or idea that Armenia and Iran can sign any form of defensive agreements, if not military alliance, but some form of military alliance that in case of military take against Armenia or Iran sides may or should support each other militarily, or even preliminary to some deployment of small Iranian military base in Armenia. I am approximately 100% sure that current Armenian government will never do that. The current Armenian government will never do that because United States will never allow current Armenian government to do that.
Benjamin, I do have a quick question, and I don't want to belabor this point, but it was brought up this week. So there were statements made about Iran and Armenia's cooperation in the context of the North-South Transport Corridor. You have previously on our podcast talked about the huge financial burden that exists and the apparent sort of lack of investments or interest from different sides in financing these North-South corridor. And we've seen evidence that the countries involved are pursuing a different road as basically the priority North-South corridor, mainly through Azerbaijan. But India's ambassador to Armenia, Kishan Dan Dewal, this week said that basically we think that this is a good project, something to that effect, and that Armenia has not made any proposals to develop the project. Do you think this signifies interest that if Armenia had made any proposals that they would be able to help Armenia find financing? Or is this just a way maybe to essentially, talk the good talk, it's a good idea to have this road, but in reality, there is no significant business interest to implement this project anyway. And just very quickly, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, but wanted to get your thoughts on this as well.
Okay, first of all, let's understand this North-South project, which appeared in 2002. The idea was to connect India via Russia to Northern Europe, circumventing Suez Channel. And in this case, the main road was either via Iran and then Caspian Sea, Russia, or by railway, Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, and then Northern Europe. But the final destination was not only Russia, but Northern Europe, like Finland and then Denmark, etc., etc. It was reached to St. Petersburg, and then from the Baltic Sea to reach Hamburg, is a big port in Germany, or Rotterdam, the big port in Netherlands, and etc. However, after February 24, after the start of Ukraine war, when Russia and West are isolated and almost even there is no trade, it means that the original idea of North-South in this context is revisited. So the route from India to Iran and then either via Caspian Sea to Russia or via railway Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia cannot end in the Northern Europe. It could end only in Russia because now there is almost no trade between Russia and Europe, and no one knows when the situation will return to normal, but most probably not soon. So in this case, either this North-South international corridor would say that, okay, now we are not speaking about India, Russia, Northern Europe route. We are simply speaking about India, Russia route circumventing Suez Channel, and in this case, everything will be the same. Either India by sea to Bandar Abbas, then by land to Caspian Sea, then by Caspian Sea directly to Russia, or from India by sea to Iran, and then on the railway or highways to Azerbaijan, and then Russia. But if the initial idea to reaching this from India to Northern Europe, circumventing Suez Channel is there, then it means that, okay, it should be either via Iran, Turkey, Black Sea ports, and then to Northern Europe, or Iran, Turkey, Turkish Mediterranean ports, and then via Mediterranean Sea going to the Northern Europe. Or it could be also theoretically Iran, Armenia, Georgia, then Black Sea, then Mediterranean Sea, then Northern Europe. But all these are very complicated. But so I'm not very sure that even there is a final decision. Is this North-South international corridor still the main goal is to connect India with Northern Europe? Or now the main goal is simply to connect India with Russia only, circumventing Suez Channel? So it's a really complicated issues, and I don't think that there is a clear understanding even among the initial signatures of this North-South international corridor agreement, like Iran, India, and Russia, because they signed this, I believe, in 2000 or in 2002, and then several countries joined, including Armenia itself. And regarding the Persian Gulf Black Sea corridor, and this Persian Gulf Black Sea is not a part of this North-South international transport corridor. This Persian Gulf Black Sea corridor, it was offered by Iran in 2016. Then 5 countries started negotiations. I mean, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Bulgaria, and Greece. And then also Azerbaijan joined these negotiations, telling that, okay, you can not only use Iran, Armenia, Georgia, then Black Sea, but also Iran, Azerbaijan, Georgia, then Black Sea. And here his idea is to simply bring Iranian goods to Europe via Black Sea and vice versa. Of course, theoretically, this also could be part of North-South international corridor, like bring Indian goods to Iran and then to Black Sea to Europe. But currently, these two projects are not intertwined. So my understanding is that when people are speaking about, yes, let's using this Iran, Armenia, highways, Tunis, and etc., currently they speak about this Persian Gulf Black Sea corridor. But here is a good question. If Armenia and Azerbaijan are going to restore communications, which mean that Armenia also will have a railway access to Iran, like Yerevan, Nakhchivan, Iran. In that case, the shortest way for this Persian Gulf Black Sea highway is not through highway via Sunik, and is not even through highway or railways via Azerbaijan. The shortest route is to start somewhere in Iran, then by a railway enter Nakhchivan, then Yerevan, then Yerevan, then Tbilisi, and then Batumi and Toti. So even in this case, if all sides, Russia, Azerbaijan, even Armenia, are telling that sides are very close to agreement on the restoration of communications, and obviously this cannot be only restoration of communications, which will allow Azerbaijan to be connected with Nakhchivan via Syunik. It also should be at least allowing Armenia to connect with Iran via Nakhchivan, and not only by highway, but also by railway. In that case, why anyone will invest billions of dollars to construct these new highways, which will connect Iran with Armenia directly via Syunik, if there is a much easier, shorter railway connection, which will connect Iran, Armenia, Georgia, and will make this Persian Gulf Black Sea corridor operational, which theoretically can be a part of this north-south international transport corridor if the initial idea to connect India with Northern Europe will remain, which now cannot be done through Russia.
North-south corridor has always looked good in Armenia, but from today's perspective, it has always been speculative. First of all, if you want to connect Iran with Europe, ultimately, it's better be done through Turkey because there is already several connections. Yes, they are not fully secure, but who can bet that Armenian route can be secure, or even Azerbaijani route? Second, Iran is not very much willing to have lots of connections with Azerbaijan because with those connections, Azerbaijan's influence in northern Iran grows, where many Turkic-speaking peoples living. So it can be dangerous for Iranian integrity. Another issue is that generally, if we can calculate how much is the trade turnover in weights, I mean the physical volume of trade, the corridor through Armenia or even through Azerbaijan is not able to provide this capacity because the turnover is much bigger. I can bring another example. The China-Russia trade is only by very small percentage operated by the Russian railway network, which is connecting China and Russia. So because there is no capacity, they are enlarging their network, but still it will not be able. And same here. So it could be a good story for either Armenia, Georgia, or Azerbaijan, but nothing more. Now, considering the situation, Armenia can, let's say, have its own transportation with Iran, possibly, if it has connections through Nakhichevan, which is, let's say, not very likely, but still possible. But it will not be major way, and I don't think it's going to be a transit way. Considering Azerbaijani route through Kazvin, Astara, Baku, and in direction of Russia, that is more viable option because Azerbaijan paid Iran debt. They gave a credit, I mean loan, to Iran in order to construct the way, the railroad. So most probably in several years it will be ready. So at least Azerbaijan will gain from it. But I don't think we should expect that any major turnover will pass through that way as well.
Okay, thank you for that. There's one more topic that we want to cover today, and that is alarming sort of news about more curbs on the press and internet. On July 4th, outgoing Prosecutor General Artur Davtyan proposed to the government to enable legislation to regulate content on the internet. He claimed that the Armenian language websites were being used for hate speech, drug trade, and other illegal activities and undesirable content. He also said that unlike a few countries, and he mentioned Russia and Germany, Armenia has no legislation to combat undesired or harmful content. While Davtyan said this is only an unsolicited proposal, needless to say, this raised furor within the news and media, as well as information security communities, because it amounts to censorship. The proposal has been dubbed as Armkomnadzor, a pun on the name of Russian Roskomnadzor, which has a reputation for heavy-handed censorship. And I should mention that this proposal comes on the heels of Pashinyan's meeting with Putin earlier this year, where the two sides committed to cooperating on the sphere of information security, which also mentioned things like, combating harmful actions that interfere in the internal affairs of states and undermine their sovereignty. What do you guys think about this proposal, specifically 2 months before he's about to leave his post? And also within the context of the agreement that Armenia signed with Russia between Pashinyan and Putin, where they talked about committing to combating, quoting, illegal and harmful actions, interfere in the internal affairs of states, and undermine their sovereignty. So this long-winded introduction notwithstanding, do you think that Arthur Davtyan's proposal has anything to do with this Armenia-Russia agreement? And what do you think about the perspective of this proposal?
I believe it could be related with this Armenia-Russia agreement on information security, because recently, in several years, even in recent years, there was active discussion within CSTO, Collective Security Treaty Organizations, that CSTO should increase its information security. And from the Russian or CSTO point of view, information security is mostly the fight against like fake news or using of social media to promote unrest, to organize revolutions, riots, etc., etc., etc. So this could be related, but I believe this also is in the general trend which we see, especially after 2020 wars, and current Armenian government are making steps or take steps or take actions which are not very in line with at least liberal democracy.
Yeah, and in fact, I would say even before the war, right, in 2020 during the COVID, restrictions, basically the Armenian government chose the China model of combating COVID and introducing strict restrictions against, what you can talk about.
And even we can discuss the process of removing some judges from constitutional court, not by referendum, but by National Assembly decision, which itself, there are significant doubts that this was itself unconstitutional, which means that if this was unconstitutional, current constitutional court is unconstitutional, which means that these decisions are unconstitutional, so it's will become a legal nightmare. But at the end of the day, I believe that if we, by speaking democracy, understands the liberal democracy, because we know that, for example, China also says that China is a democracy, and they argue that China is more democratic than United States, because there is not only liberal democracy, and according to they, liberal democracy is bullshit. But if we are speaking about liberal democracy, then I believe this step, even if this is triggered by this Armenia-Russia agreement, but in line with overall Armenian actions, government actions or steps to little bit remove itself from this liberal or Western style democracy.
It would be nice at least if those restrictions were applied evenly, both. But so my question to Hrant is, we also heard during this week that the Western watchdog NGO Freedom House tweeted at Pashinyan to hold open and transparent press conferences with the media. We know that about a week ago, there was a press conference where basically he selectively cherry-picked what questions he wanted to answer. And Freedom House said basically that Armenian authorities should support independent media and civil society through active dialogue with them.
Hovik, we should mention that over 50 media and news outlets refused to participate in that quote-unquote press conference.
Yeah. So Hrant, what do you think about this Freedom House statement? Do you think it's basically a slap not just at sort of Pashinyan's fake press conference, but also at Davtyan's proposal? And what do you think about Davtyan's proposal in general?
Let's start from Freedom House. I think Freedom House representatives' Twitter, let's say, refers to their own understanding of Armenia's issues with freedom of speech. And it is, in my view, limited view. And they don't see most of the issues. Same here. I mean, the big issue is that journalists are under constant attack. Media is under constant attack. Several medias were closed and so on. And this is big issue. Now, smaller issue is that, yes, the press conference process was non-transparent, and not only that, but this is a smaller issue. So I think it somehow reflects the issue, but the smaller issue, not the bigger. That's the first thing I want to say. Second is that, in my view, let me speculate on that this new law bill or something, which they are preparing to further limit freedom of speech in Armenia, has more to do not with Russia and not even with Germany, but with Turkey. First of all, I want to stress that Germany's law on internet freedom and information limitations is stricter than Russia, and not only stricter in text view, but stricter in reality as well, which is very important to understand. Yes, Roskomnadzor is a brand, but we should understand that it's not only body which limits freedom of speech and discussion in the world. Second, there is a big difference between the practice which we have had in Armenia already by now, and which I assume will extend furthermore after the adoption of this bill, and what is now in Russia. In Russia, in first hand, they ban any anti-Russian statements, anti-government, anti-authorities, but primarily anti-Russian. And here in Armenia, none of anti-Armenian statements will be banned and have been banned, but mostly anti-Turkish statements will be banned because they have already stated that it will combat hate speech. And now, in terms of normalization with Turkey, I think this kind of legislation, which will ban any anti-Turkish statements, will be required. So I connected to that. And mentioning Russia, Germany, and other countries can bring, let's say, more legitimacy in view of people who support either Russia or Germany or other countries. So look, we are not doing something which no one is doing. That's a common thing. That's a new standard. So either you support Russia or the West, you should support us. That's, let's say, good step in justifying the law, but I don't think it has a connection to the reality.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap up our topics here. I'd like to ask each of you if there's been something on your mind this past week that you would like to talk about. Hovik, why don't you go first?
Oh, wow, okay. I get to go before our esteemed guest. So this week, I want to talk about a court case brought up by Hrant Mikaelian against Media Center Initiative, which is operating a fact-checking outfit partnered with Facebook. And Hrant Mikaelian argued that Media Initiative Center has unduly harmed its reputation. And basically, it amounted to a lot of warnings on Facebook when people went to Hrant Mikaelian's page. And the first instance court agreed with that. Apparently, Media Initiative Center will appeal the decision, but I think this is a good precedent for opposition media that I like seeing because they're taking the fight back. And my question to the rest of the opposition media is, why aren't they investing in fact-checking outfits? Because there is a common allegation that Media Initiative Center and similar outfits are basically selectively pursuing opposition websites and opposition media for censorship or for so-called fact-checking, which I think is censorship. So if you don't think that there is an independent fact-checking outfit in Armenia, then you should create one. And I think that the opposition would, some rich opposition financiers could do that in the future.
All right. Benyamin, something on your mind that you'd like to talk about?
No rants this time.
Okay. Hrant, what's on your mind?
There have been a couple of interesting news regarding Hovik Manucharyan, which I will mention. One is that the court has judged that the Shangri-La has to get back its fines from the state budget, and so it was fined unlawfully, which is an interesting case. And another is that there was again big discussion on the Jesus Christ statue in Armenia, which Hovik Manucharyan is planning to build. And there is a lot of discussion whether we need this or not. Majority of public speakers are strictly against this. And I think this, in my view, irrelevant issue became a top discussion issue during the time of really important changes, which is also noteworthy. And many people discuss whether it somehow in protected area it is possible to build it or not, or whether we should spend money on that, and so on. So again, noteworthy discussion, but noteworthy is only by the fact that it was very overheated.
All right. Thank you for that. So we'll leave it there for today. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you, everyone, Benyamin and Hrant, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our show this week. We hope you found it informative. Now go find us on social media and follow us. Go, go, go. We'll talk to you next week.